I think we're here. Good morning. Good morning, and welcome to the Drummergy Podcast. I'm your host, Fred Rock Fisher. Everybody got their coffee? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Who doesn't want to start off their day at 7 a.m. with some coffee and some laughing and talking about music, talking about drums, just talking in general? Yes, good stuff happening. And so I just wanted to welcome you to the new Drummergy Podcast, formerly known as Coffee with Fred. But the producer and I have been making goals and planning things over the last few years, and as things go and as everything's progress, then our business evolves and progresses. And one of those was to change the name to Drummergy, which was the producer's idea. I have to give her credit. She gets the credit for most everything. And she's here and she says, I'm not a morning person. Yes, I've known that for nearly 30 years now. That's how that's going. So today's topic is going to be, did you already give up? Did you fail at your New Year's resolutions? So we will get to that here shortly, but I think it's important to talk about, being that it's today is January 7th. We're just barely into the new year, and I'm curious how people are doing, how things are going, and how they're related to your music goals and such. But I like to start off today, off these episodes, by talking about silly holidays. So today is National Bobblehead Day. I don't have a bobblehead, but when I think of bobbleheads, I think of the TV show The Office, where I think it was Dwight had a Dwight bobblehead. I thought those were pretty cool. And maybe someday there will be a Fred Rock Fisher bobblehead. I don't know, but could you could you imagine having one of those? Good morning, Fred. I'm watching live on YouTube on my TV. Awesome. I love that. Thanks for joining. Yeah, I used to only stream to Facebook for 2 years. 2 years straight, I only streamed to Facebook, the Coffee with Fred series. And now I am set up to stream to Facebook and YouTube at the same time. I may include Instagram in all of that. Thomas, I wasn't sure what your handle was there. That's your gamer tag on YouTube. Got it. Man, I hope you're feeling much better. Miss having you here. So, at any rate, I'm live streaming now to YouTube and Facebook, and it's great. And I'm excited about the new Drummergy podcast. I will be taking audio from these and uploading those to Spotify and Apple Music as well, as we go. And I may grab the older episodes and load them up too. So I don't want to lose any of that stuff. It's been a blast doing these. Today is also Harlem Globetrotters Day. Does anybody remember the Harlem Globetrotters? I can't remember hearing of them recently. I heard about them a lot when I was a kid, and there was a period of time, I think when I was between like the ages of 11 and 12, my family lived in Spokane, Washington for a year, and some school friends I had there invited me to go see the Harlem Globetrotters, and that was really, really cool. It was a great experience. I remember that very clearly, and it was a great night. That's the only time I've seen them in person, and of course, they were famous, and somebody can help me out, but I think that didn't they have a game against one of the U.S. Olympic teams, basketball? I think Michael Jordan was part of that. I don't remember for sure. Chris McCall is here. Good morning. Sweet Georgia Brown, baby. Yeah. Today is also Old Rock Day. Now, I don't know what that means when I Googled this. old rock day, the first thing that popped in my head was classic rock, which, I'm a fan of. I just feel like the classic rock stuff is so overdone. Uh, so many cover bands play the exact same set list, and to me, those songs are tired on my ears. And not that they're bad songs, because they're not bad songs. I just like, there are other songs in the world to play. There are other songs. I think if you're in a cover band, you could probably start diving a little deeper. Still play, if you still want to play classic rock, great. But you know, pick pick some different songs from AC/DC, or pick some different songs, whatever it is that you're playing. Uh, if I could hear More Than a Feeling from Boston one more time. Now, fast forward, if radio stations seem to be stuck in this too. If I could hear the acoustic version of No Apologies from Nirvana one more time, it's like, how many albums did Nirvana have? They have more than one or two songs. Thomas says, who's the most famous person you've met? Let's see. I've met quite a few. Who of those are the Blue Flashes is here? Good morning to you too. Most famous person. With my band Midline, we've opened up for a lot of national acts, a few hundred of them, and trying to remember them all is difficult. I would say I was excited to meet the guys in Motley Crue because we did a few shows with them, and the thing is, when you're playing with national acts, everybody's in their own little world. They got their things that they're doing. And so I met Tommy Lee, and it was just in passing. I said hi to him, and he wasn't really interested in having a conversation. We did not meet Mick Mars. We met Nikki Sixx briefly. We were at the moment working with Bill Aucoin, and Bill Aucoin was the manager for Kiss, and he also managed Billy Idol and Billy Squier. So Bill Aucoin was with us, and he was on the road with us. We worked with Bill Aucoin for, I think it was 2 years, maybe longer, but he was with us. And so when Nikki Sixx saw that Bill Aucoin was with us, then suddenly we became like that much more important. So he saw Bill and asked Bill what he was doing here, introduced us to Nikki Sixx, and that was a cool little moment. But I would say that Vince Neil, when we saw Vince Neil, he was upbeat. He seemed like he was happy to see us, happy to meet us, and was overall just really cool guy. You can't believe everything that's out there. Blue Flash has said, I met Buddy Rich. He played my dad's drums way back. Man, that is awesome. That is so cool. There's another drummer guy here in Boise. His name is Todd Sprague. And I think several months ago, I did a show on who the most famous drummers were, and also who's the worst drummers. That stirred up some controversy, but Todd had posted a picture with he and Buddy Rich, and that was super cool. The closest thing I ever came to the Rich family was I met Buddy Rich's daughter briefly at the Aquarian Drumhead booth in 2019 at the NAMM show in Los Angeles. I guess it's Anaheim, but at any rate. So Thomas asks again, out of the people you've met, who met you, who was the kindest and most horrible famous person? Oh, humble, not horrible. I did not meet Billy Idol. We worked, like I said, worked with the manager of Kiss. The only person from Kiss that I've met is Peter Criss, because we did some shows with him. After that show, we were invited to join him on his tour bus and take a tour of the tour bus, which was exciting for us at the time, and met him briefly, and that was a cool experience. Humble people, We did some shows with Seven Dust. I would say that those guys are amazing people, just normal, everyday people. And then um, Shannon Larkin from Godsmack, when we did some shows with them. Shannon was, and Robbie Merrill, I believe is the name of the bass player. When we played with them, we pulled our stuff into the arena and kind of pre-staged our stuff, and they were doing their sound check. And so when they got done with their sound check, Robbie and Shannon came down and said hi to us and introduced themselves. And Robbie actually asked for a press kit, so we gave him one of those. And then after their show, we played, and then after their show, I hung out with Shannon, me and our sound engineer and Shannon, and then Mark Davis, the drummer from Ugly Kid Joe. So we all hung out in the catering area for about a couple hours until bus call came for Shannon to leave. And so that they were probably the most humble people that we've met. There were others. It seems, though, in our experience, opening up for national acts, is the newer the band, the harder they seem to be to deal with. Other bands that have been around longer, out really doing it and had a bigger name for themselves, they seem to be the easiest ones to deal with. Oh yeah, I have some cool sign stuff here and there, Thomas. Yeah, you bet. You bet. I've got a whole archives full of stuff from decades of doing shows and playing and yeah, it's I have a stash of stuff and pictures and things. It's pretty cool. I've got drumsticks from a lot of drummers that we've done shows with. And while I'm on the subject, I guess, so Phil Verone, who was the drummer for Saigon Kick, he was super cool, and he ended up being the drummer for Skid Row. And Midline's opened up for Skid Row quite a few times with the original lineup on their Subhuman Beings tour. And then later with Phil Verone drumming, and I cannot remember the name of the singer at the time. Unfortunately, he passed away a couple years ago, I think from cancer. I might be wrong, but Solinger, I think is his last name, if I'm right. Yeah, so I can't believe I can't think of his name at the moment. He was super cool, and he and I sat on the floor in the hallway of the venue and talked. You go and you do these shows and you load in and get everything ready to go, and it's a lot of hurry up and then wait around for a long time, and then hurry up and then wait around for a long time. So Phil had been in the band and then left the band for a period of time, and the show we did with him, it was his first show back with Skid Row. And so there were all these boxes of new drums in the venue. And, I've got this really cool DW Collector's Series drum kit. And the drum tech for Skid Row saw what I was playing, and he was kind of eyeing it a lot. When you got cool drums, people tend to do that. I do the same thing. And I see all these boxes and they say PDP by DW on them. And my immediately not a dig on PDP drums whatsoever. But when I saw the drum tech opening those, he's, yeah, we just got this new shipment from DW, the all brand new DW drums. And then they opened up the boxes and they were actually PDP drums, and the disappointment on their face. And Phil was flying in from wherever, and so when he got to the venue and saw what he had to deal with, and the hardware was pretty low dough hardware, and when you're out touring, you need your stuff to hold up, and he was not happy, and I kind of was just hanging back observing. And the hi-hat stand that they sent him was like an entry-level kind of thing. The snare drum stand was really weak, and the bass drum pedal and a couple other things. And I said, I just jumped in and I introduced myself, and I said, and he was like, we got to get this fixed in the next couple days. I think they had a couple days off or whatever, what their schedule. So I said, hey, if it helps, you can use my kick pedal, you can use my hi-hat stand, and you can use my snare and my snare drum. And he was so thankful that I offered that up, and he did use that. So, and then Phil ended up living in Boise, Idaho for a short period of time. So there you go with that. Let's see, catch up on these comments. Thomas, how cool. How do we get a cool signed Fred Fisher drumhead? Thomas, if you want a Fred Fisher signed drumhead, I can hook you up, my friend. Have you toured? Of course, I've toured a lot. I have a little over 4,000 shows under my belt. Of course, when we were younger, we toured a lot. There was a period of time, 9 or 10 years, that Midline was doing an average of 150 to 180 shows a year. So we had a big loop that we make. So we about 3 times a year we'd make it down to Southern California and play that, and then we would play like the Pacific Northwest over into Montana, and then sometimes we would go like Salt Lake, Denver, kind of a path. And then we were sponsored by Jägermeister, and so we joined on some of the Jägermeister music tours throughout the years. The first one of those we did was with Drowning Pool, when the original singer Dave Williams was still alive. And there was another one I can't think. The last one that we did was with Saliva, Head PE, and Breaking Benjamin. And so Breaking Benjamin was a pretty new band at that time. And so Midline and Breaking Benjamin, we were traveling in an old motorhome, and they were traveling in an old ratty bus, and everybody was being their own tech. There weren't really any techs for the band. So, Seal, what do you think of GP pedals? Help me out there. What is a GP pedal? I'm not following that. Man, Thomas, how many states have I been to? Not all 50, but the New England states are the ones I really haven't been to yet. I've been almost everywhere else. So off the top of my head, I can't think of all of them. So let's get moving here. So cool stuff. Some of you know, especially my people from Facebook, but maybe not the people on YouTube, but I broke my leg on August 9th last year, and I am still recovering. It was a really, really, really bad break. Jared Anthony, wow, 4,000 shows. No wonder. I like being in the same room with you. Oh, man, thank you very much. And then Thomas says, have you had the opportunity to play shows in Europe? I have not had any opportunity to play in Europe. So side note on that, playing internationally is I was part of a recording project called X Drive, and I did this whole album, and the guitar player put this whole project together, but it's got James Lomenzo on bass. So James Lomenzo and I were the rhythm section. If you don't know James Lomenzo, originally from the band White Lion, he has been out the last couple years playing bass with Megadeth. He also played bass with John Fogerty, and he played with Black Label Society. So he and I were the rhythm section on this X Drive record, and then Keith St. John was the singer, and Keith was from Burning Rain. He also played in a band called Montrose. You guys probably know Montrose. I don't know if he was after Sammy Hagar left or not, but somewhere in there. So yeah, this was a really, really cool lineup, and we recorded a record with Andy Johns producing it. Now, if you know the Johns brothers, Andy John and Glenn Johns, they recorded all the Led Zeppelin stuff. So Andy was working on the record that we were playing on, which was such a surreal thing. And so the guitar player who put all this together got a record deal with Frontiers Records, which has a lot of 80s band. So whoever it's Tony Mason, buddy. What is all this nonsense going on? Tony, how are you? Man, I wish we could have met up when we were in Indianapolis, but I ended up in the hospital. Oh, so I just got sidetracked on what I was talking about. I don't know what I was saying. At any rate, I was the X Drive project. So got a record deal with Frontiers Records, and then that album was released internationally. And Keith St. John has a pretty big following of people in Japan with everything that he's been part of. So there was always this talk of maybe going to Japan to play, and nothing actually ever really came to fruition in any of that. But there's a music video out. So if you look up on YouTube here or on anywhere you stream music, X Drive, and the name of the record was shoot, I can't remember the name of the record. So this has been a while ago, but at any rate, it's if you're really into 80s throwback hair metal, that would be a go-to thing for you. Seal says, I am not thinking right. I bought some kick pedals a couple of days ago at Vista. I don't think they are high end, and they're not assembled right. Oh yeah. So that's the thing for drummers, is when a lot of times, especially if you're pretty new to it can be confusing on how to adjust a bass drum pedal for it to operate correctly. And so I have students bringing bass drum pedals all the time to get the tension set right and the stroke and all of those things. So and you would like a Fred drum head to put next to, okay, we can make this happen. Tony says, been stuck at home for 3 months, probably for making fun of you being stuck at home. Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that. Thomas says, so are you sick of drinking Jägermeister? I'm not a big drinker. I'm not a big drinker. And so I never got out of control with any of that stuff. So when you were a Jägermeister band, and I'm pretty sure Tony, who's watching here, his band was a Jägermeister band, or at least one of them he was in. And out of all the companies that Midline worked with, Jägermeister was one of the best ones that we dealt with. They were super supportive of everything that we did. And I think they were that way with most all the bands they had. Tony says, nope, never out of control. Not at all. I don't believe that for 2 seconds. Get Your Rock On is the name of the X Drive record. Thank you. The producer weighing in. Thank you so much. Okay. So I mentioned breaking my leg. That's how these conversations work. We get a little sidetracked here and there. So I broke my leg. I had to have 2 surgeries. I was in Indianapolis. I was miserable. It was, and I've talked about that many, many times. So the type of the break was a tibial plateau fracture. And of those types of fractures, I had one of the worst ones that you can get. And Thomas says, sorry, I've been getting you off track. Yeah, man, stop it. So getting back to teaching was fairly easy because I don't drum that much when I'm teaching anyway. I play on a pad a lot, and it's a lot of observing and instructing that way. Then I was able to get one of my smaller drum kits set up to where I could play the kick drum with my left foot. And that wasn't too much of a struggle because I've played double bass almost the entire time I've played drums. And so that adjustment wasn't a big stretch. It was just being physically able to move and do some things. So, and then a little over a month ago, I was cleared from the doctor. So it took 4 months to where the doctor said, okay, you can start drumming again. So I got my right leg going. And as of now, when I play my bass drum with my right foot, it feels like I have a 10-pound weight attached to my leg. Or I would liken it to if you've been walking out in the mud and you get a thick layer of mud on your shoes and you're walking and you can feel that extra weight as you move. That's sort of what my right leg feels like right now. I can play the bass drum. I don't have the finesse that I need, but it's getting there. It's getting there. It's coming along. Been going to the gym, trying to get on a treadmill. I have to hang on. Been stuck behind a walker for almost 5 months. And 3 days ago, I traded in the walker, and now I'm just down to one crutch. There it is. One crutch. I can move around much easier and faster than I have. I'm relearning to walk, literally. And so that's a crazy thing. So last Friday, on the 3rd of January, I played my first show with Cliff Miller, and Cliff Miller is the country artist that I drum for. And we were doing a private event at the big hotel in downtown. And so those are easy gigs because you play for a little bit, and then the company you're entertaining, they get up and they make speeches and they talk to their employees and things like that. And then you play for a little bit more, and then they stop and they talk, and then you play a little bit more. So it's totally low pressure. And that was a good experience to kind of get back into things. I had the producer with me, and she took care of kind of loading up and unloading and getting my drums in. And she's great. She knows how to put the drums together. She's been with me for a long, long time. And so she's great. So I played my first show on Friday. Let's see. Are you wearing weights on your kick leg to build your muscle up? No, I am not. And it was not suggested that I do so. I do have 2 metal plates in my legs. Or in my leg, not legs, 2 metal plates in my leg and a bunch of screws. And that'll stay in my body for the rest of my life. So no, it was not encouraged to do that. That's going to be, man, I follow doctor's orders like to the letter. And I think that's been key in my progress is doing that. So I did that show on Friday. And then on Saturday, I ditched the walker and moved to just the one crutch. And then Sunday, when we went to the gym, I got in the pool, and the pool is between 3 and 4 feet deep. So and it's about 100 feet long-ish. And I spent an hour walking back and forth from end to end and just getting some balance and all of that happening. So that was good stuff. And then yesterday was my first rehearsal back with Midline in 5 months. And Midline is a much more demanding and physical drumming. And we rehearsed for about an hour and a half last night. It felt so good. It felt so good for my soul to be able to do that and to get back in action, so to speak. I still got to, kind of ease my way back behind the drums. But once I'm sitting there, and then at the end of that, I have a lot of swelling around my knee still, and the doctor said to expect that for a couple more months. So this is not a fast recovery situation whatsoever. Okay, so let's get into today's topic. I got a little long-winded there for a moment. So I titled this show, Did You Already Give Up? Did you already give up? So last week was New Year's Eve, and that's when I did my previous show and talked about goals and New Year's resolutions and things. And I gave some statistics on how long New Year's resolutions last. And I can't remember them exactly off the top of my head, but let's say 100% of people on January 1st said, I'm going to do whatever it is, eat better, get in shape. I'm going to have a better career. I'm going to have a better life. And so we head into the new year with all this hope and optimism, and we're going to move forward. And then by the end of December, we're like, screw 2024, how dare you, and that was a terrible year, and then that cycle repeats over and over and over and over. But what about just making a commitment to say, instead of the New Year's resolution, the new you resolution, and realizing that some of that's going to take years to develop. It's not just 1 year, and it's not just 1 month, it's not just 1 week. Although you can set smaller little goals that you can meet along the way. But one of the statistics were that of all those people, only 6% of them actually follow through with keeping any kind of New Year's resolution for the whole year. Which that's a pretty small percentage, and it's something like 40% drop off in the first month. So that's how quickly people give up. My buddy Bart Robley from the Drummers Education Connection podcast, he posted on Facebook on yesterday. I know he goes to the gym like 5:36 in the morning, and he's in Southern California. He posted a picture and it said, when you're at the gym all by yourself, and he's in the gym and there is nobody around. Okay, we're talking about January 6th here, people. Where did all the gym rats go? 6 days later. And so I made some kind of comment like that, like, where are all the New Year's resolution people? And he said, Fred, people don't make it past the 4th, maybe the 5th of January with their resolutions. And that was proof positive, just in that picture. You would think that the gym would be just at capacity with people in there trying to get their exercise on. So and then last week I briefly went through some of the goals I had for myself, and my producer, the wife, Mrs. F, she and I we try to do it at least once a week, but we frequently have business meetings on what are the goals for today? What are the goals for the week? What are the goals for the month? What are the goals for 6 months? What's the goal for the year? And so we do this repeatedly. We try to be we're not always able to get together because we're both full-time musicians and we both have a lot going on, and which is great, which is what we want. So we make these plans. So I talked about those a little bit last week, but I kind of hit all the rough stuff that I went through, the pitfalls, the challenges of last year. So I was going through those, and I got a message from Mark Bergmuller. Mark, if I'm saying that wrong, you can correct me. Mark Bergmuller, and Mark watches from North Carolina. And so he sent me this really cool message, and it was a nice realization. Like, sometimes we can focus on a lot of negative stuff, and not that I was necessarily focusing on it, but I did stress some of the challenges of last year pretty heavily. And so I remember him commenting and asking, like, well, what are you thankful for, basically, or what were the things that went right? And not that I didn't acknowledge that, but I probably could have spent more time on that side of the fence. And so when Mark messaged me, he said, so today when I asked your accomplishments, you mentioned lots of pitfalls. Let me fix that for you. He said, you rose from a tragedy and turned it into a better relationship with your father. You taught and inspired many kids and adults. You kept and added endorsements. You had a bad accident and have come so far and are committed to recovery. You kept the relationship with your bandmates. You got to play again. And through all of that, you're still married. Then he said that he lost his mom 3 weeks ago. So that would be 4 weeks ago now. And her birthday was on Christmas. So that was a hard time for he and his family. So I do feel for you, but here's to a better 2025. And I thought that was a really cool message. So Mark, if you see this, thank you again for sharing that. Really great stuff. So I'm catching up on my notes here. Let's see. Thomas says, I'm sure practice with midline was great for mental health. Yes, 100%. Music is so good for the soul. It's so good for your mental health. It's so good for, think about everything that you do in your life. This show is about life and music. And I pretty much kept to that for the last 2 years. It's about life and music. And I definitely have my opinions about things, and I've shared those and will continue to do so. But just think about how music infiltrates every aspect of your life. Every aspect of your life. It's so, and so when you start to realize how important music is to you, and then when the ability to play music is taken, that's a hard thing for a musician to do. So James Harrison is here. Hello, James. Sounds like the glass half full or empty, what you see. Yeah, definitely. Any glass that's half empty, it's our perception. Is it half empty or is it half full? Like, which direction are we going here? And it's good to keep things in perspective. And, sometimes the glass will be really empty and sometimes it's going to be really, really full. And I think they call that life. I'm pretty sure. So, yeah. I was just, every year I set goals. Yeah. Every year I set goals. Mrs. F sets goals. We set goals together and we put these plans in place. And, we're both full-time musicians. I mentioned that a few minutes ago. It wasn't always like that. I used to be a landscape contractor, and I did that for 20 years. It's kind of like that scene in Wayne's World where he says, I have a big collection of hairnets and name tags. I always had jobs that I could quit really easily because I was always in pursuit of music and I wanted to be available to go on the road. And I never had these career jobs. I never had the jobs that had the benefits and the 401k plans and things like that. And in hindsight, saying no to that was bad choices, but it's what I did. And then I ended up getting into landscaping because I worked for a friend of mine who had his own landscape business, and he was willing to deal with me coming and going as I needed to, which was great. And then as things got more serious with my home life, buying a house, kids coming along, those kind of things, I kind of reached the end of what I was able to make as an income. And so I started my own landscaping business thinking that this was the solution. Ended up being a miserable thing. And I did that for way too long. So in the late 20 teens, I just had this burning thing in me to make music my full-time job, but I had no idea how I was going to do that. And so I sought the advice of people who knew more than I did, who were already doing the things that I wanted to do, who were already having success at doing those things. I'd never solicited the advice from people that failed at those things. I didn't want to have their advice because when I saw somebody that wasn't having success with what I wanted to do, they're not going to be very encouraging. They're going to tell me all the reasons why something would fail. So I started teaching drum lessons more and more and more and more and more, and to where I was able to shut down my landscaping business and teach drums full time. And then that morphed into building a recording studio, which morphed into me recording drum tracks for people. It also became a rehearsal space, and it's just I built this cool environment where I get to work all the time. I'm at home. This is at my house. And my wife became a producer. She became a recording and mix engineer. She's an accomplished singer herself, and she can play a lot of different instruments. So we have this really awesome relationship, and we just keep going. And as things have progressed, it's like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? How do we make this better? How do we keep expanding? And so those are the kind of goal things that we put together. So What do I think of Peter Cornett of the band Floater? I don't know Peter personally, and I barely know Floater, unfortunately. The stuff I've heard from them has always been great, and Midline has played a handful of shows with those, mostly smaller clubs, and always a great show, but I never really got into their band. So back to goals and things like that. So a few years ago, I always had Facebook. That was kind of the thing, right? It was always to be on Facebook. And I started a YouTube channel. I started a YouTube channel before that, but I didn't do anything with it. I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know how to do anything with it. And I would see other drummers online doing all these cool things. And I found myself like trying to compare myself to other drummers. And then I had this realization is like, okay, they're offering something to a certain audience. What can I offer to an audience out there in YouTube land? So we made a commitment to start doing drum covers. And we were going to put out a drum cover every single week. So we did that. Every single Thursday, we were putting out a drum cover on YouTube. And that kind of put pressure on us, to learn the songs, record them, mix them, and then film it and edit it and all of that stuff and put it out there. So it was a really strict schedule, and it got to where it was like, okay, we got to get in a routine of this and kind of feeling like you're learning how to skate. But we eventually had a system down, and Mary got faster at mixing and faster at putting video together and all of those things and learning how to use those tools. And we did that, I think, just short of 2 years, pretty consistently. And I watched my YouTube subscribers start building. And then there was another YouTuber, Drumman190. So if you're watching on YouTube, Drumman190 was just going crazy and putting out drum videos, covers. And then he used to do, I don't know if he still does it, but he would do these things called drummers to watch. And he would like find 5 drummers on YouTube and suggest people go watch. And so I was in one of those lists within the first 3 or 4 months of putting out drum covers. And so when he did a review of my channel, I had like 350 new subscribers in one day on YouTube. It just went boom. And I thought that was so cool of Matthew to do that. And then later on, he had me on as a guest and he interviewed me. He had this interview series he did, 5 Strokes at 5. And so I was on that. And then somewhere in there, I don't know what happened, but he took his YouTube channel down and it was gone for a while. And now it's been back up for like a year or something. So I don't know his situation, but through that, I became friends with a whole bunch of other drummers who did drum covers. And that was really cool. But my purpose of doing drum covers was just to help get me out there more as a drummer for hire, as a drum teacher, as a person who could record drums for your songs and those kind of things. And it's been a great tool for that. So we were going. And I'm talking about you having these dreams and these goals. And then the producer, her dad and stepmom, who live in South Carolina, her dad had a major back surgery and she wasn't able to be there for that, but was planning on being there for when he came home from the hospital to help him with recovery. And so when he was coming out of that and Mary was getting ready to fly to South Carolina, her stepmom had this major heart attack. And so we almost lost her. And so we had all of these things. And so Mary and one of our sons, excuse me, left. And this was in like the end of October of, let's see, what year was that? 22. It was 2 years ago. So all these drum covers that we were doing came to a screeching halt 2 years ago. I think I've maybe done a couple since then. But my YouTube channel kind of just stalled right there, understandably so. And So to try to keep something happening on a weekly basis, I started doing this coffee show, Coffee with Fred, and I did that every week consistently for the last 2 years. Well, in that period of time, so a year ago, a year ago, and I've talked about this a couple times over the last year. You're in December and the year's coming to an end, so that's like the end of 23, and we're having our weekly meetings and we're starting to make goals like, yeah, we got to get the YouTube channel thing happening again. Still do drum covers, but start leaning that towards original pieces. So we would write like 90-second pieces of music and some kind of style, and then drum along to those, which that's still a plan. But doing more product reviews and things like that. I've done the product review of the Ludwig Pocket Kit. I did one when I first got the drum set, and then I did like a 2-year review, and that's like the most watched video that I have on my YouTube channel is my review of the Ludwig Pocket Kit, which I use for teaching. So we want to do more of that stuff. So the end of 23, we're having our meetings and making all these plans, and then started the new year off last year with news that my mom was suddenly really sick and she was terminal. And so I lost my mom on February 6th of last year. So we're 11 months into that. So that, because of that, everything musically for me came to a screeching halt, except for my teaching business, which I kept my students going. But I wasn't recording for people. I wasn't playing any shows, not doing any of that. I was trying to spend as much time with my family as possible. And then, so I think I played one show in January. I played one show the end of February. I didn't do anything in March or April. And then May, June, and July got pretty busy with playing shows. But I felt like we were so far behind on our goals, but I didn't give up on those goals. It was like, okay, those were just, they had to be sidelined for a moment. And then, we have these meetings, like I said, frequently throughout the year. And our oldest son did drum corps until he aged out. If you don't know what drum corps is, DCI, Drum Corps International, that's the pro level marching band stuff. And he aged out in 23. And then our number 3 son got involved with playing in drum corps, playing the tuba. And so in August is the final marching competitions of the year, the World Championships. And that happens at the Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, Indiana. So went to Indianapolis the beginning of August. I played my last show. It was like July 31st. And I had my last rehearsal with Midline on August 3rd. And then on August 7th, we flew to Indianapolis. Me and our number 4 son. We have 4 boys. So got there riding scooters around the city. And then on Friday, was the last competition that my son's group, one of the open class, or excuse me, is it open? Yeah, open class corps, had his final performance. And so me and my son Jude were getting on a scooter and heading back to the hotel to get our luggage, to Uber to the airport and leave. And in that scooter trip, the sidewalk in Indianapolis that we were on suddenly dropped 11 to 12 inches, just no warning. And that's where I broke my leg. So I was in the hospital for a week in Indianapolis, had to have 2 surgeries. And I'm just thinking, like, we make these goals and we're going to do these things and things are going to move forward and things are going to be great and we're going to keep going. And then all of a sudden, boom, this thing happens. It was like, oh man. So I spent all of August, September, October, November, and December, and now into January on this path to recovery. So for the first 3 months, I could not put any weight on my leg. So 3 months of laying around, sitting around. Fortunately, I was able to get out of here in the studio. I had a way to prop my leg up. I could have my ice machine on and ice that leg. And thankfully, my students were super patient with me. I think that I was being a good teacher. I'm under the impression I have been a good teacher. But Also, I think it might be an encouraging thing too to see. Here's another drummer who had this major thing happen to him, and I didn't necessarily fill my mind up with all the things I couldn't do, although that was a factor, but I was trying to think of things that I could do. And so part of the things that I could do was planning for the future. And could I have planned more for the future? Yes, I could have. But unless you're experiencing pain like that, which, I'm not the only one that experiences pain. Everybody has pain in their life, but whether it be physical or mental or whatever, we all have stuff that goes on that can slow us down or sidetrack us or sideline us. So I think me getting out here and teaching and still doing what I could do to be a teacher and have my leg broken was a good thing. So here we are, wrapping up last year, heading into the new year, and thinking, how can I expand this show that I've been doing for the last 2 years? How can I have a bigger audience? And one of those things were I was only streaming to Facebook. Now I have this program here where I can stream to multiple platforms at a time. And so the name of my teaching business is the Fred Rock School of Drumming. And I took the nickname Fred Rock back in 1992, where another drummer friend of mine, who we both worked for this company called Showcase out of Tampa, Florida, gave me that nickname, Fred Rock, and it just stuck. People just started calling me Fred Rock. It started with him. So I decided to make that my brand. I got a little tickle here. So Fred Rock School of Drumming, fredrockfisher.com. And then the name of our studios is FM Studios for Fred and Mary, of course. So it kind of has a double meaning there with FM Studios. And so with FM Studios, fredrockfisher.com, Fred Rock School of Drumming, it felt like Coffee with Fred wasn't really fitting. That piece of the puzzle didn't fit very well. And so that's when the producer came up with Drummergy. Like, I'm a drummer, I'm full of energy, and I think it was one of those things where we were just being silly to start out with. And my buddy Matt Starr had done this thing where it's like, coming up with merchandise or products to get your name out there. And he's like, I don't know, you could have Fred's Drum Gum. Well, I don't chew gum, but it was one thing that he suggested. It was like this kind of kitschy little thing that you could say, well, Fred's Drum Gum. And so then we talked about, you could have Fred Rock drumming shoes and Fred Rock clothing and all of those kind of things. So, oh, Tom Keithley's here. Love from Portland, man. I miss you. You got to let me know when you're in town. I would love to just hang out with you and drink some coffee or something. And James Harrison says the big thing is the roadblocks may slow you down and force a change of direction, but you can still get to where you're going. Your goals were postponed but not canceled. Yeah. Bedhead Fred Pomenade. Man, we should have invented that when I was 10. This crazy curly hair I have has always been uncontrollable. The easiest I've ever been able to take care of my hair is when I didn't have any. When I shaved, I used to shave my head bald for a short period of time. I had to try it out. So it felt like Drummergy was the next logical step in all of this. So we decided to call this the Drummergy Podcast and to actually make it a thing. And I've had a lot of people comment that they enjoy this show and that, yes, I should take the audio and put that up on Spotify. They thought, maybe I have something to offer with that. So that is the plan currently, and we're going to just keep running with that. And that's good stuff. And I'm going to start having guests on the show. So my goal right now is to have a guest at least once a month. And they could be local musicians here in Boise, Idaho, and then of course along the way I've made pretty good friends with national tour who are in national touring bands and really great mix engineers and recording engineers all over the place, and maybe some of the people that manufacture like maybe I can get somebody from Vader Drumsticks on here, or somebody from Aquarian Drumheads. And it's going to be, that's where I want to go with this. And I want to try to keep it interactive where people can comment and I can respond. And it's just, you know what? We're all hanging out. We're having a discussion. And I get to see friends from all over, like Tom Keithley, who's here. I have loved Tom Keithley since the day I met him. He's just an awesome guy, great musician, love his voice and his style. That guy's got it going on. So love me some Tom Keithley. So Tom, let me know when you're in town, okay? Let's get together. I bet you were probably around for Christmas and I missed you. So that's bummer deal. So I like to ask every week, if you have something that you would like me to talk about or my opinion on, please put it in the comments and we can get that scheduled. Jim Royal. Jim is back east. Jim, are you in Connecticut? Is that right? Am I right thinking that? I think that you're in the New England area. Thomas says it would be cool if you got some of your midline bandmates on here. Yes, that is the plan, Thomas. I will for sure get Anthony on here and probably James Lancaster as well. I don't know if I could twist JB's arm hard enough to get on the show. JB is he's a take it or leave it kind of guy in regards to these kind of things, and I'm okay with that. He's a flat out phenomenal guitar player and a great friend, and I think he's pretty comfortable in his role. So yes, Connecticut. Jim, thank you for tuning in, man. I really appreciate that. Jim, we still have not had our phone call. When is that going to happen? We've talked about this for months now. What's going on? Yes. He's got awesome hair. Yes, he does. JB does have awesome hair. I think that's always been a thing. Guys, when they grow out their hair, then all the girls become jealous of their hair. They're like, I want that hair. But I think everybody has to maintain their hair. It doesn't matter if you're a chick or a dude. It doesn't matter if you're a chick or a dude. Hair is hard to take care of. Mine is like trying to take care of a Brillo pad. And that's why I wear a hat so often. It's a lot of work to try to look mediocre. That's the truth. So that's how we ended up with the Drummergy name, the Drummergy Podcast. I've still called it episode 108, even though this is the official first episode of Drummergy. But I want to get those old episodes of Coffee with Fred and because I think they're all connected. But as I was saying, if you have something you would like me to talk about, it could be a band, it could be gear, drums, of course. Drums are always going to be home base. And I can scrub a sink with my head. Yes, James, you're absolutely right. I could probably knock the rust off of a beat up wheel from a 1936 car. You know what, Thomas? I had a mohawk once, very briefly. You know, in that time I mentioned where Midline was playing a lot of shows every year, I did a lot of goofy things with my hair, coloring it red, having beads in braids and all of those kind of things. So, you know, I think we all go through our phase of trying to find our identity, and I definitely went through that for sure. So, good stuff. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate that. Welcoming YouTube into the fold of this. Love it. Every Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. Mountain Time, I will be right here. and we'll talk drums. We'll talk about the music business. I will share my opinions on what you should wear on stage. Get those stupid iPads off the stage. Learn your lyrics, singers. Anyway, I could go on and on. But that's it. I am going to go to the gym, I believe, and get some more work in on this knee and just keep on my path to walking again. So thanks for hanging out. The new Drummergy Podcast is in action, which is great. And I will see you guys next Tuesday. All right. Thanks for joining me and have an awesome day. I'm going to hit end stream and see how long it takes to actually end. Here we go. See you later.